Welcome to the Musar Torah podcast for Parshas Nasso. Join us as we explore the weekly Parsha, uncovering valuable insights and striving to become the best versions of ourselves through Musar teachings. Parshas Nasso contains the laws of the Nazir, a person who voluntarily takes on elevated restrictions: no wine or grape products, no cutting of the hair, and no contact with the dead. The Torah refers to this person as holy, set apart in a special relationship with Hashem. It is an extraordinary spiritual commitment, one the Nazir has fulfilled completely and faithfully. When the time comes for the Nazir to complete the vow, we might expect a celebration, a sense of accomplishment, perhaps a festive offering that reflects a mitzvah well done. Instead, we find something that stops us in our tracks. The Torah requires the Nazir to bring a korban chatas, a sin offering. Pasuk says, "V'zos taras hanazir b'yom milos yemei niziro yavi oso el pesach ohel moed." This is the law of the Nazir. On the day his period of Nazirus is completed, he shall be brought to the entrance of the Ohel Moed. This is Bamidbar Perek Vav Pasuk Yud Gimel. Among the offerings he brings is the korban chatas, the very type of offering that throughout the Torah is associated with a sin and atonement. The question is obvious, and it is one that has troubled our commentators for centuries. The Nazir didn't sin. The Nazir did something remarkable. Why is there a sin offering at all? Rav Henoch Leibowitz cites Rabbeinu Bachya's explanation for this perplexing requirement. Rabbeinu Bachya writes that the korban is brought because by returning to ordinary life, the Nazir appears to be distancing themselves from Hashem. The Nazir has been operating on a heightened plane of holiness, elevated above ordinary pleasures, devoted with singular focus to Hashem. Now, stepping back down from that level, it seems as though the Nazir is stepping away from Hashem. Even though the vow has concluded and the return to regular life is entirely permitted, the appearance is one of a withdrawal from holiness. That appearance, Rabbeinu Bachya explains, requires a korban, not because the Nazir sinned, but because the look of it demands a response. If you want to explore the other reasons given for this chatos, we covered them in last year's episode on Parshas Nasso. You could take a look there. This answer, however, raises an immediate and deeper question, and it is the one that Rav Henoch presses on with. If the Nazir did not actually sin, if everything was done completely within the bounds of halacha, why is a korban required? Why should a person be held accountable for something that merely looks like a problem but isn't actually one? Rav Henoch's answer is one of the most striking teachings in the Musar world, and it reframes how we think about our responsibility as people in Hashem's service. He explains, although a person's actions may fall entirely within the limits of halacha, acting in a way that merely appears improper is itself a form of wrongdoing. The appearance of a sin and the reality of a sin are not identical, but they are not entirely different either. Both leave a mark. Everything we do affects us. Our actions shape us from the inside, not just through their objective content, but through their character, their message, and their impression. When we act in a way that looks wrong, even when it is technically not, we are doing something to ourselves. We are sending a signal to the world and to our own inner lives that we are people who behave in a certain way. That has consequences. This is not a peripheral concern. Rav Henoch teaches that we will be held accountable not only for our actual sins, but for acts that merely appear improper. The way we eat, the way we drink, the way we dress, the way we speak, all of these carry weight because we are people in the service of Hashem. Those in Hashem's service are held to a standard that encompasses not just what is technically permitted, but what is fitting for someone who stands before the king. Let us sit with the implications of this idea for a moment, because they are far-reaching. We live in a world that often draws a sharp line between technically allowed and actually wrong. If something is permitted, the thinking goes, then there is nothing more to say about it. No critique, no reflection, no further responsibility. Rav Henoch is teaching us that this is not the Torah's standard. A person who serves Hashem carries a different kind of accountability, one that extends to how their actions are perceived, what impression they create, and what message they send about who they are and whose they are. The Nazir is the perfect illustration of this principle precisely because the Nazir is someone who chose a higher standard voluntarily. Nobody required the Nazir to take on Nazirus. The Nazir reached for something elevated. Because of that elevation, even the permitted act of returning to ordinary life creates an appearance that must be addressed. This is not a punishment. It is a recognition that those who aspire to closeness with Hashem are shaped by a wider set of responsibilities than those who don't. We might feel some distance from the Nazir. Most of us haven't taken vows of Nazirus. The laws of wine and haircutting feel far from our daily lives. The application, though, is immediate. Each of us is in Hashem's service. Each of us wears the identity of someone committed to living according to the Torah. That identity comes with exactly the kind of accountability Rav Henoch describes. How we conduct ourselves in public, how we speak, how we dress, what we eat and how we eat it, the way we treat others in the workplace, on the streets, in our homes, all of this carries the weight of representation. When something we do looks wrong, even if we have a perfectly good reason, we need to ask ourselves, is this how a servant of Hashem should appear to the world? Is this the impression a Torah Jew should create? The Nazir had a perfectly good reason to return to regular life. The vow was complete. Halacha fully permitted the transition. The Torah, though, still requires a korban because appearance matters. The impression we create matters. The message our actions send to others and to ourselves matter. This week, let's all identify one area where we may have been relying on the phrase, "it's technically fine," to avoid asking a harder question. Not whether something is permitted, but whether it fits who we are trying to be. It might be something in the way we speak in casual conversation. It might be how we present ourselves in a professional setting. It might be the way we behave at a simcha or what we consume when we think no one is paying attention. Let's ask ourselves, if someone who didn't know me saw this, would they know I am in the service of Hashem? If the answer gives us a pause, that pause is worth listening to. The Nazir completed a remarkable journey. Every restriction was honored. Every day of the vow was upheld. However, the Torah required one more step, an acknowledgement that even the permitted return to ordinary life carries responsibility, because the appearance of moving away from holiness is itself something that must be addressed. Rav Henoch Leibowitz teaches us that this principle extends to all of us. The way we live, how we eat, drink, dress, and speak must reflect not only what is technically within bounds, but what is fitting for people in Hashem's service. We are accountable not just for what we do, but for the impression we create. May we merit to carry our identity as servants of Hashem with dignity and awareness, not only in the choices that clearly matter, but in the small daily decisions that quietly define who we are. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Musar Torah. Until next time, may we continue growing in our avodas Hashem. Have a good Shabbos.